You'll have to pay him for that.
That'd be great. I guess it'd be good.
So Lorraine called and said, what do we do?
My career is.
Yes, separately. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I call to order the Executive Committee special meeting tonight, Thursday, January 10th of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. Hence, the call to order is complete, and now we have the public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the committee's scope, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Chair will entertain the consent agenda. And I second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All righty, our action items. The main purpose for tonight are to appoint members to standing committees. And I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to continue the current participation. Do we have to do?
No, we have, actually, we have some changes we have a whole lot of committees, ladies and gentlemen. And, but there will be changes to 3 of them: the Executive Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Policy Committee. So if my fellow committee member, we can take it one at a time and make motions.
Sure.
There you go, ma'am.
Do I just read the changes?
Just read who's on the committee. I think it'll be fine.
Executive Committee, Director Jones, myself, and Mr. Kelly.
And I will second that motion.
Okay.
All in favor say aye.
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 I make a motion for the Finance Committee, current Matt Kelly, Director Woods, Director Rosali, and an alternate would be Ms. Sailors.
And I second that motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
For the Policy Committee, Director Gould, Director Clark, and Director Barnes has requested the change, and I will continue to be the alternate. I make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. And now for everybody else.
You want me to go through all these?
No, just say continuing member.
Okay. Then I make a motion to continue current participation on all the other appointments.
Okay.
I know.
All right, and I second that motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone volunteering to continue and to help share the workload on all these committees. Is there anything else for the welfare of the Executive Committee that needs to be discussed? Hearing none and seeing none, Executive Committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
You're off the turf. Yeah, get used to it. Don't piss me shut off, right? Don't ever piss the facility. Don't ever mess with the guy with the mic. It's a comedy show. An extra. You guys can bring a friend. I know, don't threaten you two. Don't threaten time. That's my tiny house, space saver. Sit up here, I'll move back. No, I'm good. More than enough. Johnny had said. Oh, no, what happened? We got a letter from thanks to our officers. Saying we talked about it. Identified by their you're like 24 hours. No.
Try to get us more friends. And I think that once you got that I should. Well, maybe we should go back to yeah, well, they'll sign there, so I go back to us.
The final one
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. Welcome all, and requesting Director Kelly to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Kelly. All right. We have our Metro Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Saturday, January 12th at 2 p.m. and Monday, January 14th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. At this time, we have our public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, I understand we have some speakers.
Yes, we do. We have Miss Rosario Ramirez and Lucila Toral.
Welcome to the podium, Ms. Ramirez, Ms. Toral.
Good afternoon.
Somebody show them how
Yeah.
Plus, we can't see you.
How was that?
the whole podium.
Okay.
Doesn't plenty of
you.
information. Does our podium go down?
Looks like it's a computer monitor, so.
I haven't ever seen it go down, but see, hey, this is 2019. We want to do it right.
Thank you.
Hey, there's some hope for us all. I'm only just kidding. Welcome to the podium, ladies. Go ahead,
Thank you.
please.
Good afternoon. My name is Cristina Alvarez. I'm an organizer for the Janitors and Security Guard Union here in the general area of Sacramento, SEIU-USWW. Thank you for having us tonight.
And my name is Lucila Toral, and I'm a janitor for with the union.
Okay. So Lucila will be giving her testimony and I will be translating. Si quiere empezar aquí. Tengo.
¿Dónde está la raya?
Tengo.
Okay. Lo puedo decir en inglés si quieres.
Okay.
Okay. I have a year and almost 2 years working as a janitor, and I would like to ask you guys for to hiring someone with the union with contract with the union, because the union gives us the benefits like sick days, vacations, and what else? And some medical cover. So it's very important for us to have all those benefits because we have childs, we have parents, and all the things we really need. And this union gives us the opportunity to have all those benefits. Like other companies, they hire people like no union, they don't give none of those things. So that's my asking you guys for contracting someone with union. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Toral.
¿No quiere agregar algo más?
No.
Okay. Sí fue todo lo que dijo ahí. Puedo decirlo en español, pero también desde, yeah. Sí, está bien, está bien.
Sí.
Okay. Sí, gracias. Okay, thank you, Mr. Al. This is the first time I actually hear her speaking English. I'm really proud of her. We do provide also ESL classes for our members. So my name is Rosario Ramirez. I work for SEIU-USWW as a coordinator here in Sacramento. We represent 45,000 members in the whole state. Here in Sacramento, over 3,000. And the reason Mr. Al, Christine, and I are here is because we found out that that the Sacramento Fire District cleaning account is out to bid. That means that you guys give the opportunity to cleaning companies, whether they're union or non-union, to bid for the account. Once we found out about this, our team from the union started communication with your staff on how we can work together. We communicated with your manager, and we asked him to extend the deadline, since at that time only AVM, who's a union employer, versus 7 non-union employers were at the list of the companies who are bidding for this work in this account. We were informed by your staff that the deadline for the process was extended. So we asked our union employers, and I think I forgot the young lady's name. She was able, and the men, they were able to pass you the folders. And in the folders, you're going to see the list of union bidders that protect workers, that provide benefits and healthcare coverage. So when we found out that we had the opportunity to extend the deadline, we contacted all of our union bidders in the folder that you have in front of you, and we asked them to bid. But we were informed later after by our union employers that their bids were actually being rejected by the division manager. So besides not communicating your staff clear with us on the process and not letting our union bidders apply so they could be able to apply and give you an idea how good they are with our members, but also their bids, we were starting to do research on the 7 non-union employers that you have, on the 8 non-union employers that you have in your list that are bidding in this account. And we found out that actually 4 of them have or had a lot of violations to the state of California labor. One of them is Janet King, is what's called misclassification, where they actually don't see their janitor as employees, but they subcontract them. So that way they avoid paying a lot of healthcare coverage or salaries and hours. We also found JAMPRO, whose misclassification in wage theft. We found Visual Bros, who's also part of the list of non-union bidders that you guys are hearing their bids from. They have done failure to pay overtime, wages, reimbursement, business expenses, and many, many more issues. The other one that we did the research is called environmental control, and they have done wage theft. Through the years that we have been in the union, our union does a lot of work trying to ID all these non-union employers that does these violations. A lot of them does workers' exploitation. A lot of things that happen also in the non-union employers is sexual harassment and wage theft. So, like I said before, I'd like to share with you that we have passed a lot of different laws that actually are in your folders, so you guys will have the opportunity to see them. One of them is SB 588 de Leon from 2015, which imposes liability on cleaning clients when non-union contractors violate wages and hour laws by failing to pay workers correctly for all the hours worked. The client will be you. And the reason we have passed these laws in the past is because a lot of the times when we found these violations for the non-union janitors, and they start a process to sue the employers just go bankrupt. And then no one is accountable to anything. So we have passed through the years many, many legislation to protect janitors. I also like to let you know that, again, that most of the non-union employers have huge amounts of lawsuits on sexual harassment, wage theft again, and exploitation of workers. And as you can see, thanks to actually Lucila and the classes that we provide in our center, she's been able to learn English, but actually had the opportunity to talk to you janitors when I was walking in. And a lot of them only speak English. Only speak Spanish. So it's really hard for them to communicate and express or even read the laws that have this state of California. So why we're here is because we would like to ask you for two things. One, we really urge the district to choose a unionized janitorial firm that will provide quality services and offer the current janitors, like Ms. Toral, the opportunity to really, really earn decent wages, an opportunity to have fully paid healthcare coverage for themselves and their families. And two, we'd really like to ask you and urge you to reopen this bid to allow more responsible union employers to bid, so you guys will have the opportunity to choose one. So for the first time ever, the janitors who are working here in your buildings and the other offices where a lot of you are can have for the first time union and benefits. So I'm going to be in the back in case someone wants to talk to me, but we'd love to have the conversation because we've been trying to reach your staff and we're getting mixed messages. And so we would like to have clarity, and we hope that you guys make the right decision to give these workers the opportunity to be respected in the work site and get benefits for the first time for some of them probably. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Thank you, Ms. Toral. This is not an agendized item, so we cannot officially talk about it tonight. I'm going to take a 30-second recess, though. All right, next on our agenda, Chair will entertain a motion for consent agenda.
I'll move the consent calendar. Second.
Moved and seconded. Go ahead and call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Sheets, Kelly,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. And we have two action items for tonight. The first action item is purchase approval two Pierce Type 1 engines. And I think we have Mr. Purcell. Welcome
Yes.
to the podium.
President Jones, Board of Directors, Chief Harms, Shay Purcell, your fleet manager. Good morning and evening. I'm here this evening to ask for your approval to purchase two Type 1 fire engines. A little background, the specifications for these vehicles were put together and vetted by a group from Fleet and from the Apparatus Committee, and then run through the highest levels of the operations group. I'd like us to especially thank Engineer Mike Martin, who has put forth a tremendous amount of effort to get this specification to where it is today. These new engines are smaller, less expensive workhorses. They have the latest ergonomics and technologies, and as a side benefit, will fit in every one of our fire stations. They're 21 inches shorter than the current rigs, so that's awesome. They will have the same, actually they'll have more compartmentation than the existing rigs because of some reconfiguring, same size tanks, same size pumps. Good things. This new standard will be what we're going to use as the model for the future. The purchase will be made through the Houston-Galveston Authority contract, which was a competitively bid process that other states are allowed to piggyback from. So we wanted to make sure it was competitively bid. And the cost for these vehicles in total will be $1,335,690.36. The funds for these purchases are in the final fiscal year 18-19 budget. And I'm recommending that staff, we are recommending that you approve the purchase of these two fire engines.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Purcell. Time for board questions and comments. Director Gould?
Thank you, President Jones. Just really quickly, can you give me some idea of how involved the Pierce organization is in our internationally known mechanics school or conference?
You're talking about our local California Fire Mechanics Association meetings? Okay. Pierce is involved. They're one of the contributing vendors as far as equipment and vendor resources. They provide backside training on some things, but they're not. They're one of 6 big ones that participate.
Okay. I guess I just would like to challenge them to participate more.
Absolutely.
When you say backside training, it seems to me like with the purchases that we've done in the last several years on Pierce equipment, that organization ought to be doing a strong job of making sure our mechanics have what they need to keep those engines operating and so on and so forth. And then when you have this intergalactic mechanics thing that you do.
So on a slightly different direction, because of the kind of user that we are with our purchasing history and the quantity of Pierce fleet engines that we have, we actually are classified as a fleet customer. Okay. So we get access to their factory training, which is reserved to Pierce employees, but we're open to it. We have technical support, priority shipping, and cost recovery for billing, for parts and things like that. So we actually have a benefit from that they provide for us. It's not so much on the academy level for the whole state. It's more for their larger customers.
Good. Well, let's push them a little.
I don't have a problem with that.
I make a recommendation that we accept.
Second.
Okay, first and seconded. However, are there any other further comments, questions? Director Kelly?
On the 21 inches you mentioned.
Yes.
I multiplied that times roughly 7 feet wide by 21 feet long. That's 282 square feet. How do they gain 21 inches on that?
So there's 2 primary areas where we've gained ground. One is the very large front bumper with the bell that you see on our current 2010 and 11 Quantums is gone. The bumper is right up against the cab. We've also narrowed the pump panel so that it's about 4.5 inches skinnier. That's where most of it is. Ironically, though, this cab actually has more interior space than any of the other ones. And even though it's a smaller power plant, a smaller transmission, it's 4,500 pounds lighter, so we've shaved an entire automobile off the weight of this car. It's quicker, the brakes will last longer, everything about it. And it has more compartmentation than the existing rigs do.
I misunderstood you. So it's shorter. It's not
shorter by
lower.
21 inches.
It's not lower.
It's 2 inches shorter this way and okay. 21 inches shorter nose to tail, so it'll fit in all the firehouses.
Thank you.
Lower.
Are there any other further comments or questions for from my fellow directors? If not, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Sheets, Kelly,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Purcell. All right, our second action item for the evening is contract amendment and extension, emergency medical services, cost recovery. Battalion Chief Riggs to the podium, please. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, Board, Chief Harms, and audience. I'm here tonight to request a recommendation for extension of agreement from January 1st and proposal for 5 years with Whitman Enterprises. They are a billing agency or billing company for EMS. A little bit of background on that. Back in May of 2013, the board approved a contract at 4% cost for us. This current agreement, I'd like to give kudos to Chief Law. She was able to beat them down to 0.25% less, 3.75%. She's tougher than she looks. So to give you an idea where we're at, we're just north of $33.2 million billing last year, and at 4%, last fiscal year, at 4%, that cost us $1.3 million. But with the new agreement, 0.25% less, we're looking at about $1.2 million. So the savings there is about $83,000. But with our increased revenue from increased calls, we're going to be looking somewhere around $100,000 savings per year. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Questions and comments from fellow directors?
She's going to go? Are you going to go? I'll go.
Yes, Director Gould.
Thank you, President Jones. Chief, like you and I spoke about, I would just encourage the group to look at that cost savings that you've identified and look at a way that we can reinvest it in figuring out some strategies to eke up our collection ratio. I think it's important that we look at the money that is being left on the table, so to speak, and figure out some creative and innovative ways to capture those dollars, because our role is to basically, capture the cost of providing these services. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to be at the forefront of innovation of EMS service collection. So whatever that takes, however much money that takes out of that savings, I'd like to see us maybe send some folks someplace or collect a group of individuals and really look at how can we take what is 73 or 74% or whatever it's been historically this year and figure out a way to eke it up 1% or 2%. I won't get greedy, but even if we, at 1% of the numbers you're talking about, 1% is a sizable chunk of change. And in my mind, if we can collect more of that, it reduces the pressures and allows other areas of our organization to thrive as well and maybe do some other innovative things. So that I would just like us to at least consider that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gould. Director Sheets? No comment? Oh, okay. Any on this side? All right. Chair will entertain a motion for this action item.
Second. Third.
Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, and a go. Motion presented and seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Sheets, Kelly,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much, Board.
And thank you, Chief Riggs. Thank you. All right, now we're on to our presentation items. We have fiscal year 2017/18 annual report. We have Amanda Thomas, our Chief Financial Officer, and Ingrid Sheplin, our CPA. Are you rolling solo tonight?
I am not. I'm actually going to do an introduction, and then Ingrid will be stepping up here to actually give the presentation. So good evening, directors, Chief Harms, Amanda Thomas, Chief Financial Officer, and it's my pleasure this evening to introduce the presentation of the fiscal year 17-18 annual reports, including the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR, which is this document that you all should have, which provides a thorough and detailed presentation of the district's financial position. With this 17-18 CAFR, the district has now prepared a CAFR for each of the last 5 fiscal years, with the 4 previous reports all receiving the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. The FY 17-18 CAFR has also been submitted for consideration, and we are hopeful that we will receive that recognition for the 5th straight year. Though led by the Finance Division, the CAFR is a collaborative effort, and I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of all of the staff of the Finance Division. Without their hard work throughout the year, something like this wouldn't be possible, and I'd also like to thank staff in other divisions for their contributions to this report. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Ron Empedrad, who spearheaded the effort to develop the district's first CAFR in fiscal year 13-14, and he has been leading the charge ever since. And I'd also like to recognize Marie Jones, who is kind of the mastermind behind the layout and all the graphics in the report and makes it look as pretty as it does. The CAFR was audited by the district's independent financial auditors, Richardson and Company, and in addition to the financial audit, the auditors also issued compliance reports related to internal controls and grant requirements, and those reports are also included in your packet. I'll be turning it over to Ingrid Scheiplein from Richardson to present the results. But before I do, I did want to emphasize that the numbers she will be presenting are presented at a high level and include certain activities such as IGT and leased properties that we tend to present separately for budgeting purposes. So those are kind of included in the total, and keep that in mind when you're trying to compare this to what you see when we're talking about the budget. With that said, I would like to thank Ingrid and her team for all of their professionalism and just being great partners with us, and I will turn it over to her.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the podium, Ingrid.
Thank you. So the goal of my presentation is to touch on the highlights of the reports that are included in your package. If you have questions as I go through, please feel free to stop me at that point. So the reports that were issued that are in your packet is a opinion on the financial statements, a governance letter that contains certain items we're required to disclose to you, a report on internal control and compliance, and also appropriations limit report. So first off, audit results and observations. We issued a clean or unmodified opinion on the financial statements, so that's the best you can do as far as financial presentation. Pleased to report that we had no adjustments as a result of our audit, and this is a rarity. As you may recall, several years back, I was standing up here saying that you had, I don't even remember the total number, but it was a lot of adjustments. So I think this really shows that, Ron and his team have just done an excellent job with maintaining the accounting records in an accurate fashion. So as I mentioned, the accounting records are very clean. We also look at internal controls as part of our audit, and the district's come a long way as well in this area as far as establishing internal controls, which ensure the accurate preparation of the financial statements. So just some of the financial highlights, and I have some charts that will illustrate some of this too. You'll see in some of the numbers here that the property tax revenue increased about $9.6 million, or about $2 million more than budgeted. Your charges for services, which includes the gross amount of the intergovernmental transfer revenue, which is the revenue that supplements the Medi-Cal patients, that increased $16.8 million. Salaries and benefits increased $8.7 million due to a combination of wage increases as well as increased pension contributions. Services and supplies increased by $10.9 million, mostly due to the costs related to the IGT program. That program shows up as in both the revenue and the expense side. Also, if you look at just the general fund, not any of your other special revenue funds, your revenue exceeded expenses by $11.4 million, which is $7 million better than what you had budgeted. And your net pension liability, which we will look at a later slide, increased by $49 million. And your net OPEB liability increased by $216 million, but that's mainly because of a new accounting pronouncement that I had mentioned in past years became effective this year, and I have a separate slide that will discuss that. And we'll see on a later slide that your unrestricted net position is a deficit of $666 million, mostly due to those pension and OPEB liabilities that are in there. So this slide is a snapshot of the equity section of your balance sheet on page 20 of the CAFR. So the $69 million is basically the non-spendable portion of your equity that's tied up in your infrastructure, your equipment, that type of thing. You have about $5.6 million of restricted resources. So this shows that $665 million negative. That negative was larger by $232 million because of that OPEB liability. Your long-term liabilities, this is a snapshot of the liability section of your balance sheet. You can see the net pension liability, as I mentioned. Actually, that's a typo. It's $49 million that your pension liability increased by. And that's mostly because of the change in the discount rate. The discount rate was lowered by CalPERS this year, and when that happens, the liability goes up. The OPEB liability, as I mentioned, increased $216 million because of now having to record the full amount of your OPEB liability, whereas before, only the difference between what was calculated as the contribution and the actual contribution were recorded, whereas this year, or starting this year, the full liability is required to be recorded. This is a snapshot of your income statement. As I mentioned, the taxes, the property taxes increased $9.7 million, mostly due to increased property values. Charges for services, which includes medic billings, inspection fees, and deployment reimbursements, increased by $16.6 million. Out of that, about $15 million of it is the intergovernment or the IGT revenue, and about $940,000 increase in deployment reimbursements for out of the area services. On the expense side of your income statement, you'll see salaries and benefits increased $8.7 million. There's really three main factors that make up that increase. You had about 2% wage increases, which accounted for about $3 million, about $3.5 million increase in pension contributions, and then $1.4 million for, there was a settlement related to some overtime pay. Services and supplies of $10 million. About 8.9 million of that 10 million is the IGT. And then there was also about $1 million of tenant improvements that were expended for the preparation of the downstairs and preparation for the new tenant. So if you look at the bottom line net loss, and this is looking at all funds, and this is looking at government-wide that has all the pension and OPEB accounting entries in them, it's showing a net loss of $11.6 million, which is lower than what you had last year of $18.6 million. And for illustration purposes, I put down at that bottom line there, I pulled out the amount of the pension and OPEB expense, and that is just the accounting entries related to the recording of these pension and OPEB liabilities. So these are not cash expenses. The $24 million that I have here are just the accounting entries to record that pension and OPEB liability. So you can see if it weren't for those accounting entries and having to record those full liabilities, you would actually have a net income. So that the recording of those liabilities on the balance sheet does have a significant impact on your bottom line net income. The report on internal controls, I'm pleased to report that we noted no weaknesses in internal controls. The district has a very good system of internal controls. We look at all the processes, and I know they've worked hard in recent years to get all those processes in place in order to have a clean audit. We also looked at compliance with federal grant requirements. The district expended $2.6 million of federal grant funds during the year. The program that we tested this year as a major program is the SAFER grant, and this is money received through FEMA. and the grant was used to cover the salaries of 9 firefighters. And we determined that the district was in compliance with the federal requirements governing that grant. Included in your packet is the letter of required communications. Just to touch on the highlights to that, as I mentioned earlier, we had no significant or no audit adjustments at all. The letter also discusses more information on the unfunded pension liability and mentions the increase that we saw on the previous slide of $49 million. The pension adjustments, not the actual payments, increased expenses by $23.1 million. The letter also discusses the OPEB restatement. GASB 75 is the statement that required the full amount of the OPEB liability be recorded on your balance sheet. And that GASB became effective at the beginning of this fiscal year, July 1 of 2017. As a result of implementation of this pronouncement, there was a direct reduction of your equity by $222 million to catch up that liability to where it needed to be. The district made contributions during the year, so you are funding the plan to the extent of $17 million this year. In addition to that, there's premium payments for current retirees being made of $12 million. So even though the liability is growing, there are contributions being made toward funding that. Note 7 within the financial statements contains new disclosures, such as assumptions that are used. It also has information on if the discount rate changes, what that would impact that has on the liability, and other information. With that, I'd like to open it up to any questions you might have.
Board members, questions, comments?
My only comment would be, thank you very much for your report, for one. But I'd like to compliment our financial division. I've been here a while, and it is nice to hear that that you found our records to be so clean. I've heard Mr. Emperan's name many times, and I probably butchered it just now, I don't know. But I've heard it many, many times sitting up on the dais here, and for you to mention him by name, I think it just goes to speak to the high-performing team that I refer to on a regular basis, otherwise known as Metro Fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kelly. Any other comments or questions? I'd like to acknowledge CFO Amanda Thomas. She spent a significant amount of time yesterday with me on the phone, or day before yesterday, I forget. And we went through some of these numbers and some of the long-term challenges and planning that our finance division is doing. And that's not just for the next year, but for 5 years and 10 years. And I really appreciate you taking the time, Ms. Thomas, for that. And then your entire team. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for the presentation. I appreciate that very, very much. Okay, we'll go to reports. President's report. Well, we're still here and we're still rolling, so that's about it. Thank you. We'll do more later. Number 2, Fire Chief's report. Chief Harms.
I'm glad we're here and we're still rolling. Directors, President Jones, it's been a few weeks since we've been together. 2 things that I would like to echo tonight on the professional staff of what you said is the financial staff. And I think a lot of times it's difficult because they have a job of keeping us within line, and they do a very good job of it. I know here real soon we have the kind of our midterm or mid-year review, and we go right back into budgeting for 19 and 20. And as much as they sometimes get beat up, they do an excellent job keeping us in line and moving forward. The other thing is on the professional staff is Shay and his group down at the fleet. And he made it seem very easy to stand up and say, hey, we're buying $1.3 million, and these are the apparatus that we're buying, and really the state-of-the-art apparatus. But it was really quick that he says it'll fit into every fire station, which if you look at all of our facilities, from the doors that open and to how deep they are, to be able to do that and truly meet the needs of a lot of input of people out there. Him and his group have done just a remarkable job. I'd also like to talk about Chief Casantini and Chief Shannon. They spend a lot of times with their managers. I see them in their offices. I kind of peek in on them every so often. But communicating what is our needs, where we're at today, and where we're going. So thank to both of those groups for their job they do. The December was a mark of retirements. I think there's about 225 plus years of experience that left during December. I wish I would have thought of it ahead of time, but Captain Vestal made a video, which a picture of each one, if you get on the Facebook account and take a look at that, of each one of the members and the experience that left the district at that time. But on December 8th, Captain Kurt Wick, 25 years. December 15th, Captain Tracy Valentine's, 24 years. The 25th was a big day. Battalion Chief Aaron Webster, 26 years. Stephen Sylveston, 28 years. Bart Myers, Captain, 26 years. Engineer John Oakes, 27 years. Engineer Greg Redmond, 23 years. Right there is about 125 plus years of experience, and we wish them well. On the 30th, Engineer John Hunter with 24 years, and on the 31st, Battalion Chief Mark Repetto, 29 years. I had an opportunity to get out and see a lot of them, and you really saw companies coming around to see them, talk to them, the impact that they made on the organization, older folks and younger folks, coming to wish them well in their retirement as they move forward. With that, on the 1st, it leads to promotions. Chris Rogers was promoted to Supervising Investigator. John Graff was promoted to Battalion Chief, and Jason Vestal was promoted to Battalion Chief. We will run a testing process in about April for, I think, BCs, and then about May, or at least both of them in the spring, for captains. And we have a number of open positions right now, and so we're gearing up for that as we move forward. We hired a new office tech. Her name is Ali Zaboltsky. You'll see her out at the front desk when you come up. She's been a temporary with us for a while, went through the process. We had a number of people compete for that one, and Ali is there. We have a couple recruitments. We have a firefighter paramedic, a firefighter EMT recruitment that is out there right now, dozer operator. We also have an academy class of 20 plus folks that starts Monday. They were here last night. We looked out in the parking lot, and they all had their suits on, and they had their lint rollers, and they were getting ready, and their family, and they all came in and did orientation last night. And on Monday morning at 0600, they'll start the academy over behind Station 21. My staff and I continue to do meetings, a number of follow-ups. Today we had a follow-up meeting of EMS 2020. It's myself and the Folsom, the city of Sacramento, and Consumnes, the fire chiefs, operations chiefs, EMS chiefs, and labor. And that's about our 5th meeting that we've had as we go through. We talk about deployment of apparatus. We talk about marketing ourselves, talking about working together. One of the other things that we're doing is the standards of coverage, is where is our apparatus at today? What are the needs that we have? Where are the gaps? And what are the needs? And how is our coverage? We hope in 2019, early in 2019, that will be completed. Our next meeting will be in May. Probably the last thing that I have on here is there is some changes that are happening kind of around the state. A lot of you knew somebody named Kim Zagaris, who had been over at Cal OES forever as the fire chief over there. Kim retired at the end of the year after years and years of being there. A friend of ours, his name is Brian Marshall, who is currently the chief of Kern County, has taken that position and will be moving up here real soon. So a little bit of change that's happening down the street, and we look forward to working together with them as we move forward. That ends my report, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions or comments from fellow directors? All right, thank you. Move to the operations report. Chief Bridge. Welcome to the podium, Chief.
Good evening. Good evening, directors. Eric Bridge, Deputy Chief Operations. Tonight, I want to be able to give you a brief report on some of the numbers from 2018. But more importantly, before I move on to the more important presentation, I did want to brief you on a incident we had recently with our communications center. Just wanted to let you know we have an old dispatch communications type system, and it's been holding on by a few threads. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the quick response by many of our members, including Chief Wagaman, who coordinated a good response over to the communications center, we were able to keep things going. Briefly, what happened back on Sunday evening around 7 o'clock, we lost power to our communications center. So obviously, we weren't able to receive any calls in the typical fashion that we normally would, so everything went to a complete manual system. Like I said earlier, Chief Wagaman, fortunately with the team that he assembled quickly, which was Chief Hine and Chief Wegener and Rescue 21 and reserves, and he just brought a whole staff of resources down to help him out. We were able to help get these calls dispatched out in a relatively timely manner. So fortunately, we didn't miss any calls. Everything went well in that regards, and after about 6 hours into the early mornings of Monday, we had things fully restored. So we will be doing an after-action review on that, and we are looking at ways to make that more of a priority for us, the communications center, in terms of getting it up to in a fashion that needs to be much more stable. So we'll give you some more info as we continue to do that after action. So on to 2018, or back to 2018. We do have, we're compiling some numbers right now. I do have 3 categories I'll share with you. And just a sneak preview into when our busiest engine company and medic company and our busiest battalion. So if you guys are all out there guessing, who was our busiest engine company in 2018? It was Engine 53 with 4,682 calls. And our busiest ambulance, Medic 53 with 4,860 calls. Just to keep in perspective, there's other ambulances, Medic 24, Engine 24, Engine 21. They're all right there, and I'm leaving out probably a few others. They all compete for right around that 5,000 mark in terms of calls. Extremely busy companies. Busiest battalion, that was the 3rd category. Battalion 7 had 44,272 calls in that battalion, just in Battalion 7 for 2018. So needless to say, Battalion 7, Battalion Chief was the busiest battalion chief of the 5 battalion chief officers we have out in the field. So that's just a sneak preview. I will be giving a much more comprehensive report later in the near future of all the numbers for 2018, but that'll cover just a sneak preview. But one of the presentation I want to share with you tonight that is our Air Operations Division. So I'm not going to take any thunder away, but I would like tonight to introduce you to our Chief Pilot, Monty Van Landingham, and then Assistant Chief Tom Neville, who has oversight of our Air Operations Division. And they'd like to give you a brief presentation of 2018 and the progress that we've made. We've had, we've been making the turn on our Air Operations Division. Because one of the things that we've been really targeting is we want to be able to provide additional air support, not only in our region, but if and when the state calls on us because the fires are becoming increasingly more dangerous, we want to be able to be a partner in that as well. And I'm happy to say we are making that corner now, and they'll provide you a little more detail on that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to these 2 fine gentlemen.
Thank you, Chief. Give me
Welcome,
a minute.
Chief.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Madam President, Chief. Give me a second to find the PowerPoint. We practiced this several times today. In theory, it should be working. And for those of you that don't know, I introduce Monty Van Landingham as our chief pilot, and I think you've seen him come and going, and we've mentioned his name before, but I'm honored to actually be standing here next to him and drag him up. And so him and I will attempt to do a tag team up here, and I'll get him a little closer to Mike as we move through and explain to you what we're showing here for you. So we have a couple of things. We're going to talk about 2018 and kind of in review, and then some of the significant responses that we've had as we move forward. And we got a couple of videos for you to look at. One of the most significant deployments we had was to the Mendocino complex, and that was outside of Clear Lake. 2 fires that burned together, so they ended up calling them a complex. In total, it burned about 470,000 acres. For us, it was 32 days in the field. We conducted 4 rescues out there with a hoist, and 2 of them were done at night under NVG conditions, so night vision goggles. And while we were providing that mission out to our cooperators out in the state, we had no loss of mission capability here at the home state. So we were still providing service, aviation service, helicopter services to Sacramento Metro and the region here locally. So we had everybody, all hands committed to providing that service. We were doing wildland fire suppression, and then we had crews on board or on a standby for a 24-hour mission. And of the Air Ops members, we had 12 committed at 6 at a time, so 6 in the field and 6 at home. And so they would rotate from working here at home to rotate into out working in the field. So it was the operational tempo was quite complex. I'd also like to make this in memory of Battalion Chief Matthew Burchett. Our guys flew the mission that we took Matthew from the line and brought him back to the hospital, and unfortunately he succumbed to our injuries. But if he had a chance in the arms of our folks. And we're very proud to be part of that. Unfortunately, we didn't have the outcome we wanted. I'm going to show you a little videotape of some of the actions and activities we have going on here. I was going to make helicopter noises and talk to you through the mic, but I'll basically give you a short narration of what we see here. This is a helicopter going into the dip. Air crews Monty Van Landingham and Josh Leonard is the TFO, Captain Leonard. So as they come into the dip, they're coming into the water. They've got about 12 feet of snorkel underneath the aircraft, and they're going to make the aircraft about 3,000 pounds heavier by pulling up about 350 gallons of water. This requires a tremendous amount of crew coordination, and I wish we could get the audio for you of the air crew talking to each other, that the Monty's there hovering the aircraft, putting more power in, and then also operating the pump by taking water up from the pond up into the aircraft, again, making it 3,000 pounds heavier. The tactical flight officer helps him by looking at the gauges and lets him know how much torque he has, and the paramedic aerial observer in the back ensures that we keep the rotor and the tail rotor clear of any debris as we go. So you'll watch them, they'll pick the water up, and then after they pick the water up, they're going to fly out and work on a flank of the fire. So during this incident, not only were we responsible for the delivery of rescue hoist services, advanced life support medical evacuations, we were also pressed into service to do firefighting. So we became literally the last resort for them. So as the fire broke out on one flank, and you'll get a chance to see some of the fire activity that they came out and provided direct suppression to help crews on the ground to try to contain the fire. This fire is just outside of Clear Lake. So at this point, as they come out, the tactical flight officer with his GoPro on his helmet, that's what the view you have, is pointing out the target. They're trying to describe where to go. So we're going to go drop water on the fire, and the pilot goes, which fire? There's lots of fire. And he'll point that fire over there. So they do a tremendous amount of what we call target description, and start from a very broad point and narrow it down to a very single point. So Monty's bringing the aircraft around, pointed it into the wind, and then the pilot's calling out the tactical flight officer's calling out the target, and then he'll drop on that target. But it's a very unique view that a lot of folks in the public don't get the opportunity to see this type of videotape or this footage, to get a chance to be up close and personal. And notice the detail. You can see this is a spot fire where you sound the siren before they drop, and they're coming in supporting folks. Drops away. So that's just a little sample of some of the things that they did out on the MEU complex. One of the other things that made that a little more complicated, we moved from basically Clear Lake, Lamson Field, over to Willits, and that's about a 55-minute flight. So that's quite a distance to cover that whole incident. And then up to Elk Creek, another 45-minute flight. So ground miles as a crow flies in excess of 100 miles. So it was quite the distance to fly around, and we almost needed a fuel stop if we were to get a mission out into the field. So we're looking forward to our being able to have that capability as we go. This is a still photo that I'll bring to your attention, and you get a chance to look at a little more detail. You can see the folks on the ground down to the lower left of that picture is what the people look like when they're down there. So we have to be able to pick those folks out and make sure that we don't put 3,000 gallons of water on top of them, and that's why we sound the siren. And these fires here, you can see are spot fires, and you can see by the column that the wind's blowing pretty hard because it's bent over. Again, a photo tells you 1,000 words. This is at Lamson Field outside of Clear Lake. The helibase was actually under threat. Fire hooked around, and the crews had to go basically deploy to keep their home base protected. Got sporty there for a while. Little sample of the air crew using the tools they have available to them to make sure that the aircraft is clean and washed and do the maintenance out in the field. And we'll talk a little bit about the fire up in Paradise, the Camp Fire. We were also deployed out to that incident. Well, again, as we all know, the most destructive fire, the tragic loss of life there is still the death toll mounts as we go. 153,000 acres, 13,696 structures plus. This was a 15-day deployment to us, and again, we were on standby. We did wildland fire suppression in the beginning of it, but this time, thank God, we didn't have any rescue deployments. Well, I would like to acknowledge the City of Chico Fire Department. They allowed us to stay at their fire station at the airfield in Chico, which saved us a lot of money. And we were operating out of a fire station instead of the folks who were living in tents out on a field before. So the conditions were much better for the crews. But we learned a lot. As we go through this and talk about all of the deployments that the air crew get the opportunity when they go out to take, and everything they learn when they're out there, they bring that experience back here. It makes us a much better unit here internally to the citizens of the area. This is a very interesting piece of videotape, and it's going to show us the fire there in Paradise. It will start, if you look in your upper left, you'll see a Blackhawk making a bucket drop, and then we're going to work our way around. One of the things I want you to look at very carefully is all of the fire that's on the ground. Most of that fire you see is actually structures that are burnt. The wind was blowing so hard that the fire burned through the understory and then burnt the structures up. So the tops of the trees were intact. The majority of in this first couple of days, the fire spread was 40 feet and below. So the tops of the trees were left. And you can look down there and see that those burning embers it's not the undergrowth. Those are homes that are burnt up. Most of the columns you see are houses. You look at that black thermal column as it's twisting out there, coming up upper left part of the screen, gives you some idea of the wind conditions and the weather conditions that our crews are flying in. The challenge is then what do you do with 350 gallons of water? Where do you make a difference? So you look for crews that are working on the ground, trying to save a house, and then you'll make a drop on them on or near them to help protect them and protect the home. And you'll see right here, you have the flank of the fires burning up next to this two-story home. And this is the one they're trying to protect. So they'll make a drop basically to try to keep the thermal energy away from that house. So they're making the drop right now. And there's a little bit of Kentucky windage, if you know what that is. You'll basically have to drop out ahead of the fire so the wind blows the water back into it. It is a science, if you will. And at times, some of our pilots have earned the nickname of Virga, but we've vastly improved that. Monty, you care to comment about Virga 1? This is a little bit of a videotape of a hoist in action. I don't think we've ever shown this to the board. What you're going to watch now is this is actually a training event, but this is one of the more difficult ones we do in that it's blind. We don't know specifically where the target is. We've looked at it on a recon, but we're going to stair step the rescuer down over the top of the canopy of the trees. We're about 180 feet up. This hoist will be about 180 feet, and we'll keep him just right over the top of the trees. And then as the foliage clears, we'll lower him down and put him on the top of a pickup truck. That's about, target's about 4 feet wide and about 8 feet long. This is, again, I really wish I could play the audio tape for you because it's the tactical flight officer, the one who's operating the hoist, and the pilot working together to control the aircraft, to get it in the exact position and account for all of the winds, if you will, and all the other foliage and trees, and trying to get the individual up onto the target and account for the swing of the cable. The greater the length of the cable, the more swing there is, so it becomes very interesting. So in this case, the individual is placed right on the top of the truck. The victim, which was another Air Ops member, placed immediately into a hoist. And at this point, you can see we've had a lot of practice because we're doing a good job here. And we'll pick him up and clear the trees, back the helicopter up a little bit, and get him all the way in. Again, we'll get the chance, the opportunity throughout this year to demonstrate this live if anybody wants to come out and see it. But it is it is a dance, if you will, that everybody has to know what each other is doing. Our instructor's happy with us. And we get them up close to the end of the helicopter, so we have to put a strap on them and make sure that they stay all the way in, and then we'll boom them up all the way up inside. The device he's in there, we call that a diaper. So we sling him inside of that thing, and then he's not going to come out. A lot of moving parts. It takes a lot of practice. Very proud of the men and women that participate in this program. And talk about 2018 in review. Basically 120 calls for service locally. We had 8 requested calls for NVG fire suppression. We're practicing that. We're not fighting fires at night at this point, but we are practicing that. We have been in contact with CAL FIRE about that capability, and we have everything we need to do that, but we're going to continue to practice and ensure that we're in compliance with all the with all of the governance and all of the best practices when it goes to do that. It really ratchets things up quite significantly in exposure to crews when we're going to do that. But it's becoming the industry standard, and we'll be doing that probably into 2019 when needed. 493 drops of water. I think that's very conservative. Almost 150,000 gallons of water delivered via helicopter. 46 rescue requests, and we did do 4 rescues, and one of them was at night. 8 EMS transports, various other missions as we moved, and we had 375 hours total aircraft time, and that's up, Monty, how much from last year?
On hour-wise, over 100 hours, 150 hours probably.
So as we become more competent, we're out there more and more, our requests for services become more and more, build it, and they will come, if you will. So the nice thing is we're providing cutting-edge service to not only the citizens of Metro Fire, but to the region. We completed some hoist training, as you can see, in mountainous terrains, and received all the necessary certifications for that. Got everybody up to speed with NVGs. Bell emergency training for our pilots is ongoing, and I can't stress to you how important that is to have the manufacturer come out and the manufacturer of the helicopter go with you with their experts about how to go through emergency procedures. We're not required to do that. We do that because we choose to do it, and we do it every year. CAL FIRE does it every other year. So again, our commitment to safety and to being a #1 program is all the way through everything that we do. Now, if you remember a couple of months, probably about 6 or 7 months ago, we came in front of the board and got accepted into by board action to the FEPP and the FPP and the GSA program. And we'll talk about those a little bit more. Those are some federal programs. And we initiated, we're in the very beginning of initiating some pilot training for people that are current Metro Fire employees. That'll be a very long process, and there's a lot of requirements involved in that. So we're just starting that process. I'm not going to read you this whole thing, death by PowerPoint here, but basically FEPP and the FPP program are programs that allow us to access excess government property, either through GSA or through the FEPP and FPP. And what those allow us to do is to get, in this case, aircraft and aircraft parts for free. It costs us, what it does is just the amount of time, effort, and energy to find them, and then to get them shipped to us. So the programs that we got into is already bearing fruit. We are in the process, as soon as the government shutdown is over, the federal government shutdown is over, we're on a very short glide scope. We're fairly confident that we'll probably receive 2 more aircraft. And the pictures of what you're behind, they're Huey 2s. We fly currently a UH-1H aircraft. And the ones we're buying now are even more improved than the ones we have now. They cost the federal government about $3.8 million a piece. And for the cost of shipping, we're going to be able to get both of them. So, excellent deal for the taxpayers. They pay for them once for the federal government, and then they're going to be put back into service at local government levels. What we're looking at here is a bunch of gauges and things and avionics. Monty, what's the avionics package?
So on this one here, it's kind of an interesting story behind this aircraft because they had just got back from Afghanistan and Pakistan, went into their hangar, and then they did a complete overhaul on them. And during that overhaul, they installed the avionics package that you see here, which gives you the ability to, fly IFR instrument flight rules in all weather. Communications, as you can see, is far surpasses what we have in the aircraft right now. So they did a lot of improvements, both internally and externally, of the aircraft. Right after they finished the rebuild on these aircraft, the contract stopped. So meaning that they were going to go with a larger aircraft, such as the UH-60 Blackhawk. And so they discontinued these 2 aircraft from going back out in the field. So completely rebuilt. $750,000 just in avionics alone in each aircraft, and then they put it in the hangar. 2.5 years later, we got into the FEPP program, or they sat in the hangar for 2.5 years. We got in the FEPP program. I basically got my password. 2 weeks later, these came up in the system. And we were actually the first ones to actually put in for them. It was just a stroke of luck, actually, getting in there, finding them, and putting in there. And then after we met all the requirements that the feds placed upon us, we were the first to go up and review them. And as soon as I got there, opened the doors, I said, we'll take them. Yeah, it's a great deal.
If you'll look at the upper left-hand corner of the picture, you'll see some controls there. These are to be used in the field. So there will be some modifications that we're going to have to do. We won't need the gun controls for the miniguns that go into the... So there'll be some things that are going to come out of the aircraft.
Take another one of our engines, we might.
So we might be able to I'll have to talk to Amanda. Maybe we can trade some gun controls for a Pierce engine.
I say leave them.
The avionics that's inside of them is the same ones that are inside of UH-60s, so it is the absolute state-of-the-art stuff. Again, this will allow us to fly in IFR conditions. So what that really means to us practically is that if we're fogged in here in the valley floor and we get a Latin long where somebody may be, we can fly to that Latin long 1,000 feet above it. And then if we have good visual conditions, then we can continue to conduct the mission. If it's still so dark or so foggy, then we can't. Right now, if we're fogged in, we can't leave, even though there's VFR, visual flight rules, conditions in another part of the valley. So this is a real game changer for us. Big engines, I won't bore you with the details, but they're hot rod engines and hot rod transmissions. The current aircraft we fly are 9,500-pound aircraft. Both of these are 10,500-pound aircraft, and it just gives us a tremendous amount of capability. Yeah, we will. Let me go back one slide here before we talk about this. And Monty has a really good point of why do we need 2 more aircraft? We're already flying 2. Well, what it does is it gives us the capability to take the flight hours that we fly in totality and spread it across 4 aircraft. So it's actually cheaper for us to fly because we're spreading the maintenance across 4 airframes instead of pushing 2 airframes as hard as we were last year to fly. So when we were flying at home and we were flying on deployment, we had no reserve aircraft. So if something happened, were to break, we would have been unmission capable, and we would have to come home to make sure, because our number one priority is flying here at home. So by having 2 extra airframes that fly, we're able to spread the maintenance across those airframes, and it makes it much safer for our air crews, because then our maintainers can take their time and really look at the aircraft instead of being forced to push aircraft out and be mission ready. This isn't combat, and we're not going to sacrifice crew members for safety. So it really is, it gives us a much broader deployment capability and is much, much safer to operate. And then our last slide, as we look forward, we'll talk about some future challenges. Of course, there's always staffing. Coming up, we're going to need to get some more pilots and work on full-time mechanics. Our facility considerations at McClellan Field, we're going to be squeezed out by the growth that's happening over there at Station 115. So do we look at another spot at McClellan, or do we come over here to Mather Field? We're working with staff to try to identify another spot as we look out into the future. That could be 7 years, it could be 2 years, but those are some of the things you'll hear about as time moves on. And then, of course, operational considerations, which is based upon staffing. Currently, we're flying a 12-hour seasonal, and we'll be in a position to do something better than that as we go forward. But that, again, will be incremental approaches as we move forward. And that ends our presentation. We're more than happy to take some questions.
Well, Chief Neville, I was blown away at the video, let alone like the dozen other pieces of information you gave us, including the acquisitions. I'm just blown away. Great job. Please, any other comments, questions?
I'm curious about what what IFR was.
I'm sorry. Like in the fire service, we're terrible that way. It's instrument flight rules, so there's VFRs, visual flight rules.
Right.
I can see.
You define that.
And then IFR is basically either at night or we're fogged in. So the instrumentation in these aircraft, and because there's one on each side, so we fly with two pilots,
Okay.
it allows us to fly day or night and in most weather conditions.
Thank you.
My question is whether or not you're going to let us in on the joke. What's Virgo 1?
Oh.
Maybe
So,
another day?
sometimes if the pilot comes in too high, if we're too high, the water drop is ineffective and comes down like Virga, which is rain that never touches the ground. So Monty had a call sign for a while. We just called him Virga 1.
That's actually not how it happens. But pilots are pretty simple people, and you're just told what to do. You point and you grunt a couple of times, and you tell me when to push the button. Then it works. So.
We'll have more on that continuing episode in 2 weeks. Thank you. Please, other directors, comments?
Thank you. I sit back and I think, how many years ago that this was such a controversial thing, and I'm just so proud of everyone that's participated and sticking with it. It's incredible to me to think about what fight we had to keep one aircraft even around this community and the benefits. And now today we've just been told that this division could become a 4-aircraft division. And I'm just thinking, what's it going to be like in 5 more years or 10 more years? And primarily focused on just, the safety of the men and women that operate this, the safety of the men and women that are on the ground that we can help, and then just the citizens. I don't even think they recognize the fact that we have a capability that most of California doesn't have. And now we're even thinking about partnering with the only agency really that provides statewide helicopter support for fires and stuff. And it's just blowing me away because it's like, wow, how far we've come in such a short amount of time.
Well, if I could say something, I don't know if everybody realizes this, but this is going to be our 18th year in air operations since 2001.
Wow.
It's gone by fast. I haven't always been here, as you know, but like Chief Harms was saying the other day, and we talk about it all the time, is there's been a lot of ups and downs. And that's basically because you don't know what you don't know until you get the right people in here. And so we've changed that all around. We have a robust safety program, standardization, blah, 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 right? But really what we were missing the whole time is vision, And now we have that within the department. They've been, supportive of us. And I can guarantee you right now, unequivocally, that from my 35 years experience, we are the best air operations west of the Mississippi. In California, I would say, just from looking at other operations, and really, if you look at it, we're your only asset north of Bakersfield that can do this type of all-risk mission. It's incredible. So.
Kudos.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kudos.
Everyone speak that wanted to speak? All right, yeah. How about a big round of applause? That's just... Right. Thank you to each and every individual. The presentation was fantastic. Thank you, Chief Neville. Your commentary was only exceeded by the content of the presentation. Thank you. All right. Wow. All right. Reports. Number 3. Metro Firefighters Local 522 report. Mr. Trevor Jameson, welcome to the podium.
Good evening. Trevor Jameson, Metro Fire Vice President, Local 522. Good evening, President Jones, directors, Chief Harms, staff. Looking forward to 2019. 2018 was a great year, getting to know everyone, lots of meetings, getting to work with Chief Harms for the first year as Vice President, getting to work with many of you, establishing the relationships and the trust that'll help, I think, take everything forward. I do also want to kind of piggyback on what Chief Harms said about EMS 2020. I was also going to comment on that. And one of the things that I really enjoy about the labor management cooperation in that is it starts off talking about service delivery and service delivery to the citizens that we all serve, and the cooperation to achieve that, but also to make it better for the men and women, the membership who provide that service. We all know the call volume's going up. Chief Bridge came up here and talked about these 5,000 calls on a medic. Through cooperation and looking at how we deliver our service, we're looking at how do we best deploy the resources so the men and women, the members, are not getting overworked. And I think that's important going forward, that as, we can talk about calls and they're getting more and more, but we do need to look at the mental health and well-being of the membership. And I know you all understand that. We've had these conversations, so I appreciate that. And I just want to tell you, I'm looking forward to 2019. I think there's a lot of things that are really going right. Really enjoyed the presentation on the CAFR tonight. Really enjoyed the Air Ops presentation. There's just a lot of great things at Metro Fire. Great people, top to bottom. We have, challenges coming up with negotiations, but I think all of us have talked and understand that 522 comes to negotiations with a good heart, and we want the best for our citizens. We want the best for our membership. We are prepared to do the work. We're prepared to talk and move forward and get it done. And I mean, honestly, once we get that done, it's just going to be, I think we're just going to keep moving forward. I think we got the right leadership in place here at Metro. I think the board is just doing great work. I think we've got 9 board members who really, truly, we have 9 board members who are invested and get it. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you this year. So thank you very much. Unless you have any questions for me, have a good night.
Any questions for Mr. Trevor? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Jameson.
Thank you.
Next up, we have committee and delegate reports. The executive committee met tonight, and we made a couple changes. Otherwise, everything else stays the same. Director Sailors will be the alternate for the Finance Committee, and I'm stepping off the Policy Committee to be replaced by Jim Barnes. Otherwise, everything stays the same. Okay, our next meeting is to be announced. Communications Center, A.C. Wagaman. Welcome to the podium.
Thank you and good evening, President Jones, directors, Chief Harms, Tyler Wagaman. Speaking on behalf of the Comm Center JPA Board, we last met on January 8th. Executive Director Thusen did report out on the blackout that occurred at the Comm Center. We did pose him some questions, which I would hope most of the community would be posing the same question is how does this happen at a comm center? Is there backup power? And so the answer to those questions is yes, there is UPS power. There is generator power. But I guess what occurred that Sunday evening was multiple power outages as well as a power surge. And I guess when the power surge hit, the transfer switches got stuck. So it was not accepting shore power and it was not accepting generator power. So the UPSs, which are basically batteries, they worked to their fullest extent. And when they ran out of power, that's when everything went dark. He was very appreciative of the work that his team did, as well as the support that he got from all of the agencies throughout the evening, as well as to early next morning. We also had extensive conversation into the contract for both Joe Thuzen and the Deputy Director Soares. We're very confident that we'll be moving to action item at our next board meeting, so I hope to report some positive news at our next board meeting. We'll be meeting again on January 22nd. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief Wagaman. Are there any questions or comments for Chief Wagaman? All right, moving on. We have the California Fire and Rescue Training, JPA. Deputy Chief Shannon, welcome to the podium.
The California Fire Rescue JPA was not met for some time, as you know. We will meet next Thursday across the hall in the SESC at 4 o'clock. More report to come after the next board meeting. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Chief. We have the Finance and Audit Committee, Director Kelly.
The Finance and Audit Committee has, we've got great team. So anyways, we will be meeting next, it is the 22nd at 5:30 in this room. And thank you to the high-performing team known as the Finance Department.
Thank you, Director Kelly. Director Gould, at the Policy Committee, please.
No report.
All right, thank you. We'll move to board member questions and comments. I'll start on my left, and that's a talk for a few seconds to give a little heads up for Director Clark.
Thank you. What a year it was last year. I'm so glad we're in 2019. I'm looking forward to a great year. I want to thank everybody for their presentation, especially the Finance Department. It was an awesome presentation, and even more awesome right now was Chief Neville. I mean, that was an outstanding presentation on our air service, and just want to welcome everybody into 2019, and hopefully this is the lunar year of the Chinese lunar year of the pig. It's supposed to be a year of abundance, as opposed to the dog from last year, which was we work like dogs. I love dogs, by the way, but but they work hard. Anyway, hopefully this is a great year, and we're looking forward to serving our communities and the Metro Fire family. And thank you all for your hard work, men and women of Metro. Okay? That's all I have.
Thank you, Director Clark. Director Wood?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say, first of all, I want to thank Ms. Ramirez and Ms. Terral for coming in and sharing their position with us. It's good to hear those comments so we know what's going on. Congratulations to Amanda Thomas and Ron Emperdad. And again, I apologize for messing up your name as well. But thank you so much for all the work you did to get us our 5th straight year of a clean CAFR there. Chief Neville and Monty Van Landingham, thank you so much for that presentation. It's absolutely incredible. Looking at that video and combined with our calls and all the hours that we've spent out of district, it's amazing that there's even a debate right now about what's going on in our state and why we're having fires. But thanks for all the work you guys did. And last, Chief, as always, you and Trevor keeping us up to date on events and the significant events that happen in between meetings and how our members are doing. It's invaluable information for us. And I do appreciate it, so thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wood. And starting over to my right, Director Sailors.
First, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for making me feel welcome as a new director here. And then I'd like to say thank you to the Apparatus Committee and everyone that went together and got the purchase of the new engines. I think that was a wonderful way that they were able to get the 2 engines to fit into every station. They must have been wonderful Tetris players when they were younger. Also, congratulations to all of the retirees in December. That's a wonderful accomplishment for all of them. Thank you to Amanda and the wonderful presentation for the budget and audit report. Very well done. Thank you very much. And Chief Neville, thank you for the that had me on the edge of my seat. I loved it. When can I sign up and take a ride?
All right, thank you, Director Sailors. Director Gould?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm struck by two things this evening. The first is this work really is about what we take an oath to do, and that's to ensure financially that the money that our citizens earn and then provide us our tax base is spent wisely. And here we're hearing that we continue to receive awards, not because of anything we do clearly, but really the work of the Finance Division. So like my colleagues have said, kudos to all of you. It's just really fantastic because we take pretty seriously how we take care of the public's money, and that division does us proud. The second thing that struck me tonight was, our policies and decisions at this board, oftentimes we think about the 416 or 417, whatever that number is today, the square miles that we impact in our policy decisions. But tonight's presentation about air ops really struck me as, it goes way beyond that today now. It goes beyond the border of Rio Linda and down in the southern part of our county and east and west. It just is so much bigger anymore now that we talk about the impact, because as you saw that helicopter circling that fire, I was struck by, I wonder what it must have been like to be a homeowner or a fire crew member from a different agency and look up and see that resource flying in to drop that water. What is that moment like? And to see the brand Metro Fire flying over really impacted me about, man, what we do here when we make these policies and decisions is so much more than 416 square miles. It's just so much bigger today than it was in 2000 when a few of us were here and looked at that dream and, man, I wonder what 20 years from now is going to look like. Tonight we're seeing it. We're 5 years into having the best financial audit that anyone could ever look at. And I mean, we really are. You heard it tonight, that we're the envy of the region, if not the state. 20 years ago, I don't know that we would even have that vision. And then what we saw tonight in just one of several divisions, whether it's logistics or air operations, we're really the pride, or as someone said, the best of the state. I just look forward to the next 20. What's coming in the next 20? Can't imagine. Kudos to all of you. Happy New Year. It's exciting to be part of the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gould. Director Kelly?
Tonight's been a great night, and I hope that 2019 just continues down this road, and it's going to be a wonderful year.
Thank you. Director Sheets?
Good evening. I would like to thank the presentations tonight. Those were fantastic, both the finance and the air operations. And just to echo what Director Gould says, not only is the air operations supporting our community, but outside our community. And also, don't think for a second that the members that are on the ground fighting the fire, when they do see that helicopter and they know that this is the best program that we have in this area, that they aren't feeling more supported, or at least a little bit more secure in knowing that when they are going into those very, very dangerous areas that, they go because they're asked to go, that they don't also feel that. And that the training that you guys go through and the certifications that you don't have to have, also, for the families who have members that are in the air operations, knowing that is why they are training. And unfortunately, the firefighter that did pass, like Chief, you had said, if he had any chance because he was given the best care, it just goes to show that, as an elected official, that this is exactly why I want to be part of this team and serving my community. So thank you very much for that. I also wanted to wish all of the retirees best wishes and to congratulate all the promotions and wish everybody a happy New Year's. And I also, too, look forward to 2019.
Thank you, Director Sheets. 2019 is off to an auspicious start. I am so proud of this meeting that we've had tonight. We've had public input, public comments, well-spoken and well-received. We've had a tremendous amount of discussion, presentation for so many aspects of the programs that Metro Fire initiated, as Director Gould said, 18 years ago, going on 20 years ago. We've had hundreds of years of experience and dedication with successful successful retirees. We're welcoming new potential retirees on to the department. It's just been very, very auspicious. And I'd like to thank all my directors, staff, and all the members of our community for the continued support that Metro Fire continues to earn in the community. And with that being said, we will be adjourning to closed session. I think we're done with everything here. Double check. We'll be recessing to closed session. Please be advised that item number 2 has been continued until our next meeting. And as usual, we will not expect to see any of you here upon our release from closed session. All righty. Thank you. Adjourned to closed.
No, Jim, it's something serious or something important.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do it.
I gotta get the whole pair. She's used secretarial work too.
Are we playing musical chairs?
Not bad.
Are we playing musical chairs?
No, that's right
I
spot.
thought they're from like a school doing a report or something. What are you guys doing out this?
I'd like you people to come make a report, please.
All right, we'll hereby resume the public open meeting for tonight. We have a report out from council from closed session.
Thank you, Director Jones. The board met in closed session to consider the Government Code Section 910, a claim for personal injuries and property damages filed by Brianna Johnson and her subrogee. The board voted unanimously to reject that claim. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we close, as in our closing for this meeting, I'd like us all to rise for a moment of silence in honor of Consumna's firefighter Al Maraz, who died over the holidays. All right, thank you all very much. Our meeting will be adjourned until January 24th in these chambers.